What's up YouTube, it's Alex and I'm back at again for yet another video. So today we will be continuing on with our adventure into the MCU. I know it's been like a week or two since I did my last video on Iron Man. And I know I said that I was going to try to get them out every day, but it's getting kind of hard just because I'm rewatching the movies so I can tell you guys what's going on in them. And just they're kind of long, and then trying to find time to make a video, it's kind of hard. But we're back for another video, and so today we will be discussing the fourth movie in the MCU, and that is The Incredible Hulk. So many people, when they are actually trying to get into the MCU and start watching them, like from movie one, people are they don't really know which Hulk to watch because there is multiple Hulk movies. There is, I think, one by Sony, I think it was, or someone. That one was just really, really weird because it tries to explain that it was his father was the original Hulk and Bruce just got it in his genes. I don't know. I didn't like that movie. It was like really weird and like kind of hard to follow. But if you like it, good for you. You can understand it better than I do. I think I watched it quite a few years ago, though. So if I watched it again, I would be like, oh, this is actually interesting. But that one is not part of the MCU. This one actually does have a direct tie-in. At one point, I will discuss where that tie-in is and why it was kind of like big. So let's dive right into this movie and start like dissecting it and showing and. Well, let me show you all the weird, like, little Easter eggs that you didn't catch the first time or however many times you watched it. So first off, this whole movie is actually filmed in a tint of green that is the exact shade of the Hulk's skin. I actually, because I have this weird Marvel fact book, and that was actually one of the weird facts in it, and so, I thought I should, share that because that's just interesting because when I was watching it, I wasn't really seeing like it was tinted or anything, but I guess it is compared to other movies, so, I guess it's there. So then, yeah. So even though the actors actually completely changed. This movie has Edward Norton. If you watched The Italian Job, you'll know who I'm talking about. He's the main villain in that movie. He plays in like a bunch of other movies that I just can't think of right now. But so this one has him in it. All the other movies in the MCU actually have Mark Ruffalo. I think it's when we get to the Avengers, I will explain why Edwin Norton was kind of booted out and Mark Ruffalo came in and took up the role of the Hulk. Also, this movie is actually in like the movie community and film critics, they actually say that this is half sequel, half reboot. And so they have actually created a word called requel. And so that is what they identify this movie to be, is a requel. I don't really see how it was a sequel to any of the other Hulk movies, because it wasn't, I don't know, there really wasn't any sequels to anything in it, unless they're trying to say that it's a sequel to, like, Iron Man, since it does tie into Iron Man, but there's really nothing that's a sequel in it. So I don't really know why they qualify it as a sequel. If you know why they qualify it as a sequel, leave it in a comment down below telling me this is why it's a sequel. But I don't know. So let's dive right into this movie, and stop talking about all these random facts before we even start into it. So it starts off, we see flashes of different things. First one is a cell, like cells in your body, like type thing. Then we see an MRI scan of someone's like head, I think that's what an MRI is, anyways. So, then we start to see different flashes of an experiment that actually created the Hulk. We also get our first look at Betty Ross and General Ross. I think General Ross is the only one to actually from this movie to actually make a comeback, besides the character of the Hulk. Then we see the Hulk just sitting there destroying a lab because it is the day that he was kind of created. That he ends up just destroying a whole lab and all that. Then we see some random newspaper clippings that all refer to incidents with the Hulk, that they either saw the Hulk or someone saw him. And then we see that the government is actually trying to track him down. And we see one of the things that is in these flashes, we see Stark Technologies. So they are kind of hinting at Tony and his company in this movie. Then we also see that the government actually caught Bruce Banner actually trying to contact Betty in February of 2006. I want to say this movie is supposed to take place in 2007, I want to say. I can't... there was an instance where they actually kind of say, in one of the movies that they say, when did the events of Incredible Hulk take place? If you know exactly when it took place, leave it in a comment down below. Or it actually might take place in 2009, since I'm pretty sure it does take place after the events of Iron Man 1. And Iron Man 1 does take place in 2008. So, if you know exactly what year it is, leave it in a comment down below. Because, I clearly don't know what year this was supposed to take place in. We also see a piece of paper referring to Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. It's kind of ripped up, so you have to... And if you don't stop it, the movie, you'll actually completely miss it. Because it goes by so fast. And on that piece of paper, it also says that Bruce Banner is a threat level red. We also see a government paper saying Betty was Bruce's former girlfriend, and it does legit say former girlfriend on it. Then we see... I lied. There was actually supposed to be a scene in this kind of montage where we actually would... it was apparently shown in the trailers of the movie. I will try to find the exact trailer that this scene is in, and I'll probably, if I find it, I'll leave it in a link down below so you guys can actually watch it. There was a scene where we see a depressed Bruce, and he actually travels up to the Arctic to try to commit suicide. And apparently also in that scene, we would have gotten our first Easter egg at Captain America, because I guess when he goes to the Arctic, he stumbles upon Captain America, and he sees the shield. That was supposed to be the original idea, and then the whole scene was actually cut from the final film, because they felt like it would upset younger viewers. This scene is actually also referred to in the Avengers movie, because, when we get to the Avengers movie, I will explain how this was actually referred to. But yeah. But then we see Bruce sitting there meditating, and having all these thoughts kind of flash through his mind. And he's just sitting there, meditating it out. If you don't know, I have this all all these facts written down right here. So if you hear papers flipping, it's because I'm looking at my notes of what actually was going on in the movie. So because I watched this movie, I think last week, so it's been a week. I was watching other movies too recently. We see him sitting there kind of meditating with all these thoughts kind of swirling in his head. Then we see a little thing in the corner saying days without incident, 158 days. This is actually a little over 5 months. I think they actually refer to that he has been missing for about 5 months. We then see that he lives in, I'm going to just butcher this name because, yeah, it's Rochidi Fahala, Brazil. If I said that wrong, put it in the comments down below and just type it out for people so that so they can actually try to figure out what how to say it, because I just butchered that. We actually get to see some of the buildings in this movie that they're like actually really, really close. If you actually saw, I think it's Fast 5, so Fast and the Furious number 5. I'm pretty sure this is where they are, like they go at the very beginning of the movie. If you haven't, then it's completely fine. Fast and the Furious doesn't have anything to do with this movie, so it's okay. Yeah. Then we end up sitting there seeing Bruce watching a children's television show, trying to learn Spanish because he's only been there for, I want to say he's been there for 5 months now, and he still hasn't really picked up on Spanish. He can speak a little bit of it, and we see that he tries to. Then we go and see that he leaves to go to like some fighting practice and practice on his meditation and controlling his anger. His trainer actually sits there and slaps him in the face and tells him just breathe, 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 so that he can control the Hulk from kind of jumping out and beating the crap out of him. Then we jump to the factory where Bruce actually works. It is a factory that ships and bottles soda. The owner ends up calling him upstairs because something's wrong with with one of the machines, and Bruce is the only one who knows because I'm pretty sure he has a PhD at this point, so he can totally use one of his PhDs for that. He sits there and he fixes it. The owner then tells him he should give him a raise. Bruce then ends up cutting himself on the machine, and his blood goes flying down to an assembly line, and he thinks he finds the one drop of his blood on the conveyor belt, and he actually misses a completely different one. It is actually in a bottle, and then we actually follow that bottle on the assembly line and watch it get filled, and then we see in a big thing of soda, and it says that it's actually being shipped to America. Then we see Bruce in there trying to help a female coworker that he kind of has the hots for, get away from these creepy dudes, because they're just, I don't know, they were kind of jerks the whole time we see them. They then push him and start trying to get him to fight them. Bruce then in his really, really bad Spanish, he ends up saying, "You wouldn't like me when I'm hungry." Unlike what he actually is normally heard saying, which is, "You won't like me when I'm angry." It's because, I don't think he really knew what the Spanish word for angry is. And so he's hungry. And he ends up actually saying it in a questioning voice of, I don't really think that's correct. Then he ends up kind of grabbing the woman's hand and kind of goes off with her and gets her away from the creeps. Then we jump to Bruce sitting there meeting a man who actually is bringing him a special delivery. He sits there and he's all excited about it. He runs home, sets up his computer and connects to a encrypted chat with another scientist. This scientist is actually named Mr. Blue, and Bruce's name is Mr. Green. Kind of fitting since he's the Hulk. He then tells Mr. Blue that he has finally found the flower he had been looking for, because I think Mr. Blue tells him about this flower and kind of sends him out to go find it. We then see him sitting there preparing a little vial of it and providing a small dot of blood because he's trying to concentrate the flower petals because it's supposed to cure gamma radiation, and yeah. And so he's trying to get it so that he can suppress the Hulk, so that he doesn't have to live in constant fear of him sitting there, turning into the Hulk. Of anything could send him off. He takes a sample of his blood, puts it on a slide. He then puts a little bit of the liquid on there and looks at it under a microscope. We see that the liquid suppresses it for a few seconds, but then it ultimately fails, and the Hulk genes kind of just crack the whole slide. Just completely cracks it. Then he tells Mr. Blue that it has failed. Mr. Blue then tells him that he thinks it's time to meet. Bruce tells him it's not safe for Mr. Blue to actually meet him. Mr. Blue tells him it's not safe to live with radiation poisoning. And so then he's like, just send me a vial of your blood so he could run some tests on it. So Bruce ends up sending him his blood. Then we jump to the Pentagon, where General Ross is works now. He then was told about a man who got possible gamma sickness. This man is actually Stan Lee himself. Ross then asks where was it bottled, and they tell him that it was somewhere in Brazil. I'm not going to even try to say it again. And then he starts trying to get a team together to go hunt down Banner because he's finally found him. In this team, he ends up getting a really, really good soldier named Blotsky. We see that the whole team is planning to go get Banner. Blotsky asks who's the man that they are actually trying to get. Was he a soldier? Ross tells him that he is basically a murderer because he's been that if he came back in the States, he'd be kind of bombarded by cops for all these crimes that he's been said that he's committed. Then we go back to Bruce, who gets a message from Mr. Blue telling him that he finally got the blood sample and he finally found something to help with the gamma radiation. He also tells Bruce that it will actually cure kind of the Hulk. It can't completely cure it at that time. If he had more data, he could help out. Bruce then tells him he doesn't have it. That it's home. Then we end up actually seeing that team that we saw Blotsky on, going in and kind of trying to capture Bruce. Then Bruce kind of it's not really explained how he knows that they're coming, and kind of just disappears before they get there. Then they kind of see that he's starting to get away, that he must be on the ground. So then, and he's just, trying to get away from them. Blotsky then sees him in a crowd of people and starts chasing him. Then he ends up because he's getting chased, his heart rate ends up going up, and if he has too much of a high heart rate, he will actually turn into the Hulk. He then runs into the creepers from earlier in the movie that he got the girl away from. He actually bumps into them by accident, and and they kind of take it as an insult that he's really wanting to fight them. They end up chasing him all the way back to the factory that they all work at. They end up finding him in the factory and end up trying to beat the crap out of him. he ends up then he sits there and he keeps trying to warn them that that something bad, really bad's about to happen. And then he turns into the after like the final blow. He kind of turns into the Hulk then, and then starts beating the crap out of those guys. Then we see the team Blodsky's on is sitting there kind of in the building too, sitting there trying to get him. And the Hulk ends up sitting there like beating them all up too, and actually killing I think a few of them. Also, if you listen very closely at during the scene, you will hear the Hulk say "Leave me alone" in a very, very deep voice. Most people will actually not catch that he actually does say "Leave me alone." Most people just take it as a growl, that he's just growling at them. He ends up then beating the rest of everyone up, and besides Blodsky, who ends up surviving, and he ends up getting away. Then we see Ross and Blodsky going through Banner's stuff at his apartment. Blodsky actually asks him about the Hulk and says that he needs to explain what that is, because Ross says that was Banner, and you need to explain. And Ross is like, no, I don't, because he really just doesn't want to explain that it was a government experiment that went wrong. We then see Bruce lying on some wet rocks in like a jungle, and we see the days without incident is now back to 0, and Banner's actually made it all the way to Guatemala. He goes and gets to the road and stops a man in his truck and asks him if he can help him, and he's like, yeah, get in, and he's like, then the guy asks him, where are you going? And he's like, home. We then see Ross and Blodsky arrive back in the USA, just basically on a plane. That's basically all we really see of them. We then see Bruce in Mexico in tattered clothes, while still sitting in his tattered clothes from the Hulk. A child then comes up to him and gives him some money, which he uses to go and buy new clothes. And then he starts his long journey back to America on foot, and also those feet are completely bare. Somehow, between Guatemala and the US, he ends up getting some shoes somewhere. It's never really shown where he's getting these shoes, or how he got money for it, but, whatever. We then see Blodsky sitting outside of Ross's office waiting for him. They then discuss the Super Soldier program, which is actually called back to Captain America. Ross then tells him that they were actually trying to recreate it. That's what Banner was working on. He then tells him that they've actually perfected the exact thing that Captain America was given, and that he will give it to Blodsky, and it will make him better and stronger. And basically, because he tells him that he's almost like 40. Blodsky says that he's almost 40, and he's like, oh, well, if this could basically give you a body of a 20-year-old. And he's like, oh, well, then Bruce would be absolutely no match for me. Yeah, then we jump to, I think it's Culver University, where Bruce is actually trying to get his data. It's then shown the days, the little thing that says days since incident. It says 17, so it's been 17 days, so we kind of moved kind of quickly to get to the U.S. He then is kind of doing recon mission, just in there trying to look at all the security and everything to try to get to his data. He also then ends up going and seeing Betty from afar, and sees that she's actually dating someone new. He then ends up going to this place called Stan's. No, I'm sorry, Stanley's. No, it's not spelled like Stanley. It's spelled with just as one word. I thought that would have been funny if they did of Stanley's. But maybe that was trying to be a callback. I don't know. But then we end up seeing Stanley, who is an old friend, who ends up offering him to stay in the room upstairs above the restaurant. Then Bruce ends up asking Stanley for a favor. He ends up he first asks him about the man that Betty is dating, and then he ends up asking him for a little help because he's kind of found a way to get past the security by bringing a pizza. He ends up sitting there saying, he tells the security guard at the front, he's like, "Oh, someone's upstairs, I need to go give them a pizza." And he's like, "Oh, I don't think anyone's up there, but and he's like, "Please, I really need to." And he's like, "How?" He ends up like sitting there kind of bribing him with a pizza. And he's like, he's like, "Go on up." And the guy who actually plays that security guard, this very muscular security guard, is actually the guy who plays like the Hulk, like the green version of him. Or like I think they kind of imaged him after this guy. I don't quite know because the Hulk seems very much taller than this security guard, but I don't know. In all honesty, we then end up sitting there. He goes up to the computers and sits there and is trying to find his data. The man who's actually sitting there, and if you watched it, the guy who sits there and holds the pizza and goes like this, keep him in mind, he actually does come back. It is not actually confirmed if it is the exact same character, but the actor is the exact same for another character who comes along in Spider-Man Homecoming and in Spider-Man Far From Home. So, and I like to believe that it's the exact same character, just because I think it would be funny if they did that. Yeah. Then Bruce starts typing, trying to find the data, sees that all his data has actually been kind of deleted. And so then he ends up sitting there opening the chat with Mr. Blue and starts telling him that the data is gone. Mr. Blue says, "Well, without the data, I can't help you." We then go to later that night, and we see Betty with her new boyfriend. I don't know if they actually ever say his name. I think they only say what his profession is, and he is I think a shrink, they say. I don't know if I really can't remember if his name is actually said. I don't think it is. But if it is, leave it in the comments down below saying this is what that dude's name was. But she's Sir, and she comes in for dinner, and Stanley says, "Oh, I have nothing but marinara," and she's like, "Come on, Stan, it's Friday night. I really just want pizza." And then we see Bruce. And he's actually leaving because he's seen that his data's gone, so there's no point in really staying. And while he's trying to say goodbye to Stanley, he walks out into the front, and that's where he ends up seeing Betty for a really quick glance. He then ends up just leaving really, really fast. Also, side note, Betty's new boyfriend, if you actually have ever seen Modern Family, he is the guy who plays Phil Dunphy. It is the exact same actor. I don't know, I thought that was kind of funny. But Bruce ends up leaving the building really, really quick and starts trying to hide from her. Betty then runs after him and tries to find him. Then she ends up running into him while he's trying to make his way to the bus station. Yeah. she ends up sitting there saying, well, I could offer you a place to stay. So he ends up going back to her place with her. Then he tells her that he has to get up kind of early the next day, so that he can get a bus. Betty then ends up giving Bruce their data from the experiment. Bruce ends up explaining to Betty why he's a fugitive and why General Ross is really just wants to find him. It's because General Ross actually wants to try to get the Hulk out of him and try to replicate it and turn it into a weapon. We then see Ross sitting there getting the super soldier serum out of being frozen, and is bringing it to give it to Dablowski. Betty ends up sitting there offering to Bruce that she would take him to the bus station. Then we see Dablowski end up actually getting injected with this serum. And so he's, getting the body of a 20-year-old again. We then see Bruce and Betty stupidly chilling at the college that Betty works at. While there, Bruce ends up sitting there seeing like a military man run by, and then he kind of pieces it together that he knows that the military has found him, and the General Ross has found him. Then we end up seeing Dablowski sit there and is, running really, really fast, kind of like how Captain America, after he was done with the whole thing, he was kind of running fast, trying to catch someone. And we see that that's kind of one of the effects on him. Bruce then ends up sitting there running into a library and actually ingests the flash drive that the data is on. Then we end up seeing Betty sitting there standing in front of this military vehicle, yelling for the general to come out. He ends up sitting there and he's trying to force her to watch what they're about to do to Bruce, because they end up trapping him in an overpass. Then they end up putting two gas canisters in there with him, which end up getting him kind of, angry, and end up having the Hulk come out. And he Ross is trying to show Betty that the Hulk is a monster. He is not something that could be used for good. He is something that could be used as a weapon and used for bad. Then we see the Hulk in his full form. Since we didn't early in the movie, we didn't really see his whole self. Actually, strangely enough, I guess the Hulk is different in every movie, in some way, shape, or form. In the Avengers, I will explain how he's kind of different from this Hulk, how he looks. Then we then see the military sitting there shooting at the Hulk, and they you end up seeing just all the bullets just hitting the ground, so it's kind of stupid that they're just sitting there constantly shooting him, and it's not gonna really do anything to him. We then end up seeing a fight between Dablowski and the Hulk. It's a very intense fight, because it's kind of showing Dablowski's skill with the serum. Then we end up seeing the military bring out some Stark tech to try to stop the Hulk. And it ends up not working because he ends up destroying it. Ross ends up calling in a gunship, and Betty actually is sitting out there, walks out to the Hulk, and that's exactly when the gunship comes and starts just shooting at it, trying to shoot the Hulk. He ends up sitting there going and trying to protect Betty from the bullets. He then ends up like destroying the gunship and has it come crashing down in a fiery blaze. And so then he sits there and he picks up the unconscious Betty and starts trying to take her off to safety. We then jump to Betty and the Hulk after hours, like quite a while. I lied. We jump to Betty's house, not hours. House, seeing that the government actually is sitting there trying to go through it, trying to find anything about Bruce, see how long he was actually there for or whatnot. We actually also find out that it was Betty's boyfriend who actually called the general in to and telling him that he believes that Banner was there. We then see the Hulk bring Betty to a safe, like, little cave type thing. I don't know if that's really like the right word about it, but he's trying to get her out of the rain. Betty then wakes up and tries to calm the Hulk down a little bit. It's also said that during the scene you can see Thor. I think that is a complete and utter lie. I was looking very, very hard at the scene, and there is no proof that Thor is there. So whoever came up with that theory, I think you should go watch the movie again, because you really don't see a figure behind him, because that's what it was said, was that you see a figure with lightning coming out of him. I didn't really see that, but, you know, someone must have seen it, because that was a big kind of theory. Yeah, we then see Ross in there going and checking on Blotsky, because he was, you know, kind of kicked in the face by the Hulk, and his face was smashed into a tree. And they sit there and they're like, oh, well, we should kind of try to find if he has family and tell him that he's probably not going to make it through this. We then go jump back to Betty, who and see a normal, calm Bruce, who's kind of like out of it. She then goes and checks into a motel, and then Bruce is sitting there going and freshening up, taking a shower and all that, and while he's doing that, Betty's actually out going and getting new clothes for the two of them, because his clothes are completely, you know, ripped up and torn. One of the things that she actually gets Bruce is a pair of purple pants. In the comic books, the Hulk actually is usually seen wearing purple pants, but Bruce in this movie tells her probably not, that he doesn't really want to wear them. We then see some news reports on the attack at the college, that we see some people got kind of captured on their phone. We then jump back to Bruce and Betty, while Betty is in there, like, trying to get him a haircut. We also, we see them get a little frisky with each other. Bruce then, because she got him a new, like, little bracelet that kind of monitors his heart rate to tell him if it is getting too high. Bruce then tells her he can't, that he can't do that, what she wants him to. That he can't get too excited, or he will, you know, turn into the Hulk, because his heart rate will go up too much. We then jump back to Blotsky and see that he has completely made a full recovery. So the serum is clearly working for him, absolutely. We then jump back to Bruce and Betty as they're trying to sit there, and they're actually setting out to go meet Mr. Blue, and trying to hide from the government, as well as S.H.I.E.L.D. We then see that S.H.I.E.L.D. has actually found the man named Mr. Blue, we then see, and they're trying to get to Mr. Blue before Bruce ends up showing up there, or sit there and kind of run into him while he's there, so that they can arrest him. Then Betty ends up sitting there. They end up getting a car too, because Bruce sends Mr. Blue a file of the data that he was asking for, and that's kind of how S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of finds him. And also at that point, we see Bruce and Betty buying a old rundown truck so that they can just try to get to Mr. Blue, because he's actually in New York City. Betty ends up asking Bruce what it's like to have the Hulk. He then tells her that it's feels like having acid poured into his brain. We then see Blotsky sitting there getting injected with even more serum. Then we go back to Bruce and Betty, who are in a traffic jam because the government is actually sitting there checking cars to see if they have them as the fugitives. They end up sitting there ditching the car in the traffic jam. I think it was kind of a jerk move to do that because now everyone's going to have to try to go around that. And then end up taking a boat into New York City. Then they try to sit there and try to find the best way to get to Mr. Blue. They discuss possibly taking the subway. Bruce ends up explaining to her, no, it's not a good idea because what happens if I Hulk out down there? It's just going to be terrible. They end up getting a cab. And this cab is like just insane because the guy like doesn't really speak that good of English, and he ends up sitting there and you actually see him actually hit somebody. Actually give them like a little tap, and Betty ends up sitting there telling him just to pull over, that they're out, and the guy ends up sitting there trying to flirt with her, and she's like, "Oh," and she gets really mad at him, and Bruce ends up telling her, "Oh, I have a few techniques if you want to know how to kind of control your anger," but then they finally make their way to where Mr. Blue is. And end up meeting, and Bruce meets him for the first time, and they end up going back to, I think it's his house or his lab, and they end up talking, they talk about the data that Bruce has given him, and all the kind of the antidote that that Mr. Blue has created. We then jump to seeing back at a military base, seeing the effects of the serum that on Blotsky. He's actually has like a really, really bony spine now, and it is actually the effect that will turn him into the villain of the movie. We then jump back to seeing Mr. Blue, and they're preparing to put the antidote into an induced Hulk. They end up getting the Hulk to come out by electric shock to the brain. They end up sitting there successfully being able to suppress the Hulk coming out. They end up then talking about how there is actually no way of telling if they completely got rid of the Hulk or if it was just that one-time thing that they would have to continuously give him the antidote to get the Hulk to not come out, or what the whole deal is. Mr. Blue ends up mentioning about the test subjects that they never survived. Bruce ends up asking him to explain, and then he ends up showing him this whole room just devoted to trying to find the antidote for Bruce, and seeing that he has replicated Bruce's DNA into a little thing, into different blood samples. Bruce ends up telling him that he needs to destroy all the research because the government would want to get it. We then see the government is all set up, and they end up shooting him with a tranquilizer. And right as he's passing out, we see Blotsky run right for him, and sits there and kind of smacks him around, and is trying to get it. He's trying to get him to show the Hulk out. And ends up actually knocking him out. And it seems at that point that the Hulk is completely gone for good. Ross then tells Bruce, "If you've taken it from me, I'm going to put you in a hole for the rest of your life," since he does want to use it as a weapon. He then talks to Betty, and she just totally calls him out of like how he's just basically a jerk and all that. And she's like, don't ever talk to me as I'm your daughter ever again, because I'm not. And she kind of disowns herself, kind of, and says that she doesn't want any part of him. We then see Blodsky wake up because he must have like been knocked out too. We then see him sitting there trying to get Mr. Blue to put Bruce's DNA into him, and he's Blodsky ends up asking him, "Have you ever seen what he looks like?" And Mr. Blue says, "It's godlike." And Blodsky's like, "That's what I want. I want that." Mr. Blue then tells him that he doesn't quite know exactly what he has what Blodsky has already in him, what he has swirling around, basically. And that if you put the DNA of Bruce in there, that it could turn him, it could just go completely wrong. Yeah. Then we end up seeing Mr. Blue put Bruce's DNA into Blodsky, and we see the character of Abomination coming out, and we see him sitting there throwing stuff out of the lab. One of the things that he supposedly throws, I'm not 100% sure, because I would have liked to actually see more of what was going to happen with him. We see Mr. Blue actually get some of Bruce's DNA into a open wound. I would have wanted to see like kind of what the effects of that on him would have been, if any. But we apparently one of the things that we see Blodsky kind of throw out of the lab is Mr. Blue himself. I thought that it was actually another person, and that Mr. Blue was actually secretly in the lab still. I still like to believe that, but there is no evidence that Mr. Blue is still alive. They've never confirmed or deny it. We then see some soldiers take to the streets, telling Ross over like Mike's saying that the Hulk is in the street. Bruce then sister jumps up and kind of looks at what they're like the video of what's going on in New York, and sees the Abomination. Hulk then Bruce then ends up jumping out of the helicopter, falling. And Molly's actually sitting there falling. He realizes that he is not actually turning into the Hulk, and that possibly he has actually completely gotten rid of the Hulk, and he is actually and kind of gets the oh crap moment of, oh god, I'm actually falling to my death right now. But right after he actually crash lands into the cement, we see Hulk come flying out. We then have the final battle with Abomination and Hulk. Abomination then takes it goes on for like quite a little bit. They end up kind of destroying most of Harlem. I think it's Harlem. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Harlem that they like kind of destroy, because it's referenced in Avengers. We then see the Abomination actually takes down the helicopter that Ross and Betty are in. And then as the Hulk and Abomination are battling it out again, we then see the helicopter catch on fire, and the Hulk sits there and saves it with a nice Hulk clap. Then Hulk and Abomination continue their fight, and as Abomination is about to kill Ross, we hear Hulk scream out, "Hulk smash!" And he smashes the ground and ends up trapping one of Abomination's legs in the ground. Then Hulk ends up going up to him, and because the Abomination was using some metal like like chains, but like they were ginormous. He was sitting there, and that's what he was going to kill Ross with. Hulk ends up grabbing them and chokes Abomination out until he passes out. The reason why they they have a specific reason why they planned it that we would not see Abomination killed, was because they actually had plans for him to return as a minor villain in any of the movies. The movie that they actually had in mind was actually Avengers: Age of Ultron, but that scene was actually completely cut from the script. So Abomination we don't really know like what's going on with Abomination, where he is. I think that it would have been an interesting thing to kind of touch upon in Captain America: Civil War, just because Ross comes back in that movie. But I don't know really how they would have tied it in. We then see Betty go out to the Hulk, and try to calm him down, but then they shine. Some people shine a big bright light on Hulk, and he ends up sitting there and he's like, no, and actually runs away into the night. We then see Betty a little while, I want to say it's probably like a few days after the whole incident in New York City. We see, we see her sitting there with a camera that had a picture of Bruce on there while he was smiling, and then it dies. The camera dies. We then see Bruce is now living in Bella Coola, British Columbia, away basically from everything, anyone and everything. He ends up seeing that he bought Betty's necklace back. It's not really explained whose necklace Betty is wearing. I'm going to say it's her mother's, but it was worth a lot of money, so he ends up buying it back from whoever they sold it to. We then see again the days without incident, and it goes from, I think, 31, so it's been exactly a month, about a month since the incident in New York, and then we see it run back down to 0. Then we have kind of a post-credit scene, but it's before the credits. We see that General Ross is sitting in a bar, sitting there drinking something that is actually called a Hulk. That is what the alcoholic drink is. We then see Tony Stark walk in. He tells Ross that they are putting together a team, meaning that he is hinting at the Avengers and the creation of them. And then that is it. And credits start rolling. And that is the entire Incredible Hulk movie broken down for you guys. Yeah. If I missed something that you think was oh my god, that was so big, how did you miss it? Leave it in the comments down below. If you have any questions so far through any of the movies or anything that I have discussed for the MCU, leave it in a comment down below. I'll probably, when I get closer to the end of doing all 23 movies, I will make a video. If enough people leave questions, I'll answer them during a whole video. So if you have a dire question, leave it in a comment down below on any of the videos in this kind of group of videos, and I will answer them for you guys to the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video, hit the little like button down there for me so I know that someone's actually out there watching and actually liking these videos. And I will catch you guys on the next video. See ya!